Welcome to the Capital News. I am your host, Alex Kreitis. Today is June 11th, 2019. Thank you so much for joining me. So today's episode is titled Presidential Jabs and Secret Deals. So we had the president and crazy Uncle Joe Biden both in the state of Iowa today. Not in the same neighborhood, however, because of course they may have actually went behind a barn to solve this in a fist fight, because I know that they were called out before to fight behind the barn. Well, of course, you're in Iowa. I'm sure you can find any barn you would like, and it would be a no-holds-barred type of situation, and boy, would that get the ratings, and you'd have to put that on pay-per-view. But I'd pay big bucks to watch that. I think that would actually be pretty interesting. I would have to give it to Trump. He's a pretty big guy. It would be something to see. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, but hopefully it doesn't come to fisticuffs. But nevertheless, these two gentlemen were in the state of Iowa, and of course that's a big state politically speaking. It's the first caucus that kicks off the presidential election, if you will. So it's obviously very important to both sides. It's an agricultural state, no doubt about it. And what we are witnessing right now with these trade deals, or lack thereof, is a lot of commotion and uncertainty with farmers. So this was a sector of the population that sort of tilted towards Donald Trump in 2016. They've stuck with him up until this point, but there seems to be a little bit of waning in this demographic in these Midwest states, especially that with the farmers. Will they consider a Democrat contender, or are they going to stick with President Trump throughout this administration, throughout his first 4 years, and will they give him a second go at it? It remains to be seen. From today until November of 2020 is a long way away, especially in today's era. We don't know what's going to happen day to day with all of these tweets, with all of these statements, whether it's from the White House, whether it's something from the central bank, whether it's another political element from anywhere around the world. It's an eternity from today until November of 2020 with those presidential elections. But nevertheless, we had crazy Uncle Joe Biden and Donald Trump in the state of Iowa, and they're trading jabs. Well, of course, President Trump loves to get dirty and is no stranger to it, loves it, and is calling Joe Biden a loser. He just says these things, and while I may be getting tired of it, they are at sometimes. They're just comical, because all you can do is laugh. Because if you get upset of it, you're going to be upset all day long, because this is unfortunately what the president does. Again, I understood, or at least I thought I understood, that this is what candidate Donald J. Trump was doing in the 2016 presidential campaign. I thought, okay, now if he should win and become the president of the United States, he will put aside this act. He will say, okay, we have to get down to business. I'm a successful businessman, yada, yada, yada. We have a whole host of issues that need to be dealt with structurally that have just torn this country apart on so many levels, politically, socially, you name it, that's happened. But he didn't do that. He didn't roll up his sleeves, so to speak, and say, okay, now we're just getting down to business. We're going to put away this showmanship. We're going to put away the name-calling. We're going to put away anything that could lead to more divisiveness, because this country is as divisive as ever. This is not all President Donald Trump's doing. It's simply not. He is a symptom of what has been taking place in this country for a very long time. He is not the disease, ladies and gentlemen. He is not the disease. I know for a lot of people who might be anti-Trumpers out there, that's hard to believe, but he's not. There's a lot of flaws with this president. There's a lot of flaws with everybody, especially those who hold high office, because those who tend to seek such high office and such power tend to have a handful of issues that go along with it. And this man is no different. I was hoping that he would be. I really, truly was. But like I always say, hope is not a strategy. I was putting aside a lot of the things that this president said and did during the 2016 campaign, because he said, you know what, this country has so many issues that need to be solved, that need to be tackled, that, you know what, maybe we need somebody who needs to shake up the system. There was no way I was going to vote for Hillary Clinton. The woman needs to be in prison. I mean, that's not a biased statement. That's not me coming from the right. I'm a libertarian. This is just simply looking at the facts. This is looking at what this woman did during her tenure as Secretary of State. This is what she did with destroying 33,000 emails while under subpoena. This is what she did while destroying, physically, BlackBerries with hammers. Okay? This isn't just something from the right saying, well, you don't like her, and, well, that's where she should be. You should lock her up. No. This is just looking at the facts of the case. Okay? That woman should be in prison. And then we had the podcast and a whole bunch of discussions in the past year when we talked about what Secretary Clinton and former President Bill Clinton did and are quite possibly still doing with their charitable organization. And I use the word charitable organization very loosely because they've made themselves quite rich, but who have they really helped at the end of the day? Very interesting question, isn't it? So really, was it a charitable organization, or was it just some sort of financial scheme to enrich the Clintons? I think it's the latter. But time will tell, because we did that podcast. It was probably already a couple months ago, maybe a few months ago already. And where do we stand with that investigation? We have no idea. There's not a peep. There's nothing. I mean, you got to dig real deep to find anything, and there's just not much there right now, which is no surprise. This is the deep state. Hopefully something does come out. Hopefully there are fireworks. Hopefully these people are held to account. And the president isn't above the law either. So I'm not playing sides here. If the president committed a crime, he should be held accountable. And if it's something that warrants him being in prison, then he should get his day in court. And if a jury finds him guilty, then so be it. Now, I understand right now, and we've had these discussions, especially in light of the Bob Mueller report, that they knew from the outset that they were not going to be pressing charges or indicting this president, because that's just simply the precedent that has been in place with the Department of Justice. So from the outset, they had no real intention of indicting this president, but they wanted to make it a political story, and they leave that to Congress. And that's where we are. You have Jerry Nadler, Elijah Cummings, Maxine Waters, Adam Schiff, the names go on, who are going to continue to investigate this president, his administration, and anybody he's ever shook hands with. Will they come up with anything? Highly unlikely. Why? Because we just spent $40 million with the Bob Mueller investigation, and they got nothing. So how are these idiots in Congress going to come up with something? I just don't see it happening, especially when everybody knows this is undoubtedly politically tinged. Now, you could say, well, maybe Bob Mueller was politically tinged, or some of the prosecutors that he had working with him, or some other investigators. That's neither here nor there. They had a job to do. They weren't political. They were hired to investigate and do a job. Okay? We know for a fact that these politicians are political. That's what they do. They're looking for their 15 minutes. They're looking to make this a circus. It is a circus, and that's what we have. We have structural issues. They're not being solved. And that gets us right back to our presidential jabs. Because on the one hand, you have Donald Trump saying that Joe Biden is a loser. And on the other, you have Joe Biden saying that Donald Trump needs to fix himself. Okay, maybe both are true. I mean, Joe Biden ain't any winner in my book. And for Joe Biden to come out and say that Donald Trump needs to fix himself is quite rich, because Joe Biden has quite a few flaws himself. And you have to look back at the Obama administration. Of course, he was there for the entire 8 years. Whether he was really there mentally, I don't know, because maybe he was taking a nap. Maybe he was off wandering about in the woods. I have no idea. Because this man comes up and he makes these statements that Donald Trump has to fix himself. Well, that may be true, but guess what? Joe Biden has to fix himself too, and he has to look at his record and that of the Obama administration for 8 years, okay? And let me just preface it with this, because I've mentioned this on this podcast many a times, and I'm sure if this comes up again in the future, I will do so again. I have stated that President Obama could have gone down as one of the best presidents in the history of this country. I didn't vote for Obama. Not the first time, not the second time. I didn't like him the first time. I didn't like him the second time. I still do not like the man. I don't care for his policies. Okay, but nevertheless, he came in and he could have really had a clean slate. Because what was unfolding during the last years and last moments of the George W. Bush administration was something epic. It was once in a lifetime. It was a crisis that provided an opportunity. It was an opportunity for the incoming Obama administration to say, you know what, look, these banks, a lot of these major corporations, they defrauded millions and millions of Americans. These Americans lost their homes. They lost their jobs. They lost their cars. Some of them, even because of the financial stress, lost their families. And some of them lost their lives because of the stress, some of them committed suicide. But guess what? These families, these individuals did not get bailed out. But the banks did. Other major corporations, those who were directly involved in the fraud, they got bailed out. Of course, this was started under the George W. Bush administration, but nevertheless, it was continued throughout the entirety of the Obama administration. He could have said, see you later. You defrauded the people. Why should you be bailed out? Because we have to, quote unquote, save the system? Well, what system are we talking about here? The one that just defrauded everybody and screwed over millions and millions of Americans? And really, this had ripple effects the world over. Quite frankly, a lot of the world is still suffering from it, if you can believe it. Because not only that, we had the fraudulent and flawed economic policies of zero interest rates, negative interest rates in some parts of the world, and quantitative easing, or some derivative thereof, depending on what part of the world you're in. But here in the United States, that's what we embarked on. It was a travesty. It was a crime. It was another fraud perpetrated on the American people. Of course, it was inflicted on the many to benefit the few. That's why we have such income inequality. That's why we have Donald Trump as our president, because he is not the disease. He is a symptom of it. It's quite simple. Donald Trump never would have become president with his antics, with his rhetoric, with his style, if everything was A-OK. You wouldn't need somebody to do such a showy job. You just wouldn't have to have it. Everything would be fine. But Obama missed the ball. He missed it big. And that's no surprise to me. It's why I didn't vote for the guy, because I was not surprised that was going to happen. He was going to continue. There's no way that John McCain was going to do any better. He didn't know what he was doing. Remember, he suspended his campaign for the good of the country to travel to Washington, D.C. He had no plan. He had no idea what was going on. He had no idea where the Bush administration currently stood with their policies of how they were handling the financial crisis. And he wanted to suspend his country as virtually a political stunt because his campaign was failing. And he wanted to go to Washington. Well, you would think somewhere, either in his mind or somebody advising him, would have a plan or at least something to make him look presidential. Hey guys, here's what I think we should do and here's how we can do it. He didn't say a peep. He didn't say a peep. Obama had no idea what he was talking about either, but guess what? He spoke up. He actually, quote unquote, looked like a leader. He looked presidential. And that capped it. It was a complete joke for that to have happened. I don't know if anybody remembers that. It wasn't that long ago, but nevertheless, this is what we're talking about. The Obama administration comes in. They had the opportunity of a lifetime to end the fraud in this country. Maybe not in its entirety. That might be wishful thinking. But it could have taken a big chunk of it out, and we'd be a lot better off because of it. Now, we're now arguing about lowering interest rates once again and embarking on another round of quantitative easing. You cannot make this stuff up. This is the largest wealth transfer in the history of the world, most definitely one of them, coming from the middle class to the top percenters. And again, this podcast is not about class warfare or demonizing wealth, but when it's done fraudulently, we have a big problem with it. And while we had candidate Trump talking properly and accurately about the fraud and criminality of these policies, now he is calling for them. Now he himself is calling for lower interest rates and quantitative easing number 4, which is, one of the main reasons why I wrote the letter, one of the main reasons I have major concerns with this president, and I am struggling with perhaps voting for him again. This doesn't mean that I believe he's going to lose. I quite honestly still believe he's going to win, because you have to look at who he's up against. And that gets us right back to where we left off. What did Joe Biden and the Obama administration do? They saved the banking system, that screwed over this country and continues to do so. They bailed them out for the entirety of their administration. What about the debt? It nearly doubled. It nearly doubled over that 8-year period. What took from George Washington all the way to George W. Bush almost doubled in 8 years. That's not a good track record. It's not a good track record at all. What about the abuse of power with the IRS targeting Republican and conservative groups? How was that for you? What about the Benghazi, Libya incident? What happened there? Was that a good thing? What about the Fast and Furious, the drugs and the guns moving over the border? What about that? Was that a problem? Where were you, Joe Biden? Maybe you got to fix yourself. Maybe you got to fix yourself too. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid going insolvent, they did nothing to stop that. Obamacare, what a travesty. Now it's in the courts. It's a political football. Why do you want these idiots controlling your health care? Makes no sense to me whatsoever. None whatsoever. Why do you go and ask your congressman, what are we going to do with health care? If their answer isn't we're going to get out of it and let the market solve it, then, that's the only answer you should ever hear. That's the only answer you should ever want. Why do you want them to control your health care, your medical care? It makes no sense whatsoever because, well, I'm a Republican and the Republicans in there and I want them to do it that way. Okay, well, are the Republicans going to be in power always and forever? No. So the Democrats are going to get in and say, well, I'm a Democrat. The Democrats are in power and I want it my way. Well, are the Democrats going to be in power forever and always? No. So I don't understand what's so hard to understand about this. Get them out of it. Get them out of your doctor's office. Get them out of your pockets. Get them out of your bedroom. Get them out of your business. Why do you want the government involved in all of these affairs? It makes no sense whatsoever. Get them out of it. So now you have Obamacare. It's failing. You have the Republicans. You have a Republican White House. You have a Republican Senate. And it's going to get dismantled. It is up. It is going back through the court system. It will most likely be struck down as unconstitutional. Why? Because it is unconstitutional. Because you have to remember, folks, the only way this was held up as being quote-unquote constitutional was because of Chief Justice John Roberts' interpretation that it is a tax. And of course, we were told throughout the entirety of the Obama administration during this legal battle that it was not a tax. It wasn't. The great legal scholar, Barack Hussein Obama, constitutional attorney extraordinaire, it's not a tax. Well, Chief Justice John Roberts said it was a tax, and that was the only thing that allowed it to be upheld as constitutional. Now, with a lot of things being stripped out, it really has no teeth. So it will be found to be unconstitutional, in my opinion, because it should be found to be unconstitutional. My only hope, and we've had many conversations on this. I wrote an article on this too on the capitalnews.com, so be sure to check that out. It's still up there. It's definitely archived. You can find it. Because you had President Trump out there saying that the Republicans should be the party of healthcare. And I said, no, there's no way the Republicans should be the party of healthcare. No party should be the party of healthcare. Get out of it. Let the free market solve these issues, and believe you me, it will. But the government has to get out of the way. Makes no sense. The president wants to cut taxes, he wants to deregulate, but somehow he wants the Republicans to be the party of healthcare. A chunk of the economy that represents 17%. That's how much we spend on healthcare in this country, which is far higher than any industrialized nation on the planet. We don't have necessarily, we don't have just a healthcare problem. We have a health problem in this country. That's the problem. Nobody wants to talk about it. Everybody wants to, go ahead, eat what you want, do what you want, drink what you want, smoke what you want. Okay, that's fine. I'm a libertarian. That's all freedom. That's fine. But you got to pay for it. Don't be reaching into my pocket to pay for your problems. I don't like that. It's not how it works. Okay? I want to give money voluntarily to charity. That's my business. Not yours reaching into my pocket or going to some Democrat or Republican and saying, you know what? Reach into everybody else's pockets to pay for my problems. That's not how it's supposed to work. That is not the definition of freedom. That is the definition of theft. That's what that is. People have to wake up to this. Okay, so anyways, we got the presidential jabs going on. So again, we're going to have another three-ring circus throughout 2020. This is no surprise. I told you to buckle up, get the popcorn ready. It's already going to be in full swing. Donald Trump loves this. Joe Biden I think he's going to enjoy it too. And, you got Spartacus over there who's, I don't know what the hell he's doing, but he's somewhere over there wandering in the woods himself. You got Pocahontas. I'm sure she's skipping through the woods with Spartacus somewhere. Kamala Harris, Crazy Bernie. I mean, these are the people who are basically the representatives of the United States of America. You got to be kidding me. This is the best we can do. I mean, I thought President Trump was going to turn it around and really be a little bit more presidential, but he isn't doing anything. He isn't doing anything. He cut taxes. How'd they pay for him? Oh, yeah, that's right. He's not. $1 trillion deficits. That's a good idea. That's great. That's fantastic. $1 trillion deficits as far as the eye can see. This is their own admission, by the way. This is in the 2020 budget, the $4.75 trillion monstrosity. Okay? $1 trillion deficits. Is that draining the swamp? Record profits from the banks. Record profits in business with the military-industrial complex. That is, by definition, the swamp. More government spending, more power to the power brokers. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. But let me tell you something. You're worried about some farm subsidies, and you're worried about some trade deals that mean jack, and you're talking about a wall at the southern border. That's nothing. That's fleas on a dog, okay? It's something that needs to be addressed. But where's the debt? Not discussed. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, going insolvent, no problem. Demographics, the demographic cliff that we're facing, it's non-existent. We don't have to talk about it. As long as we can have these trade deals with Mexico and with China, everything will be A-okay, which, of course, again, is a bunch of malarkey. But these are the headlines on which this world lives, because that leads us to the second half of, our title here for today, presidential jabs and secret deals. Well, what's the secret deal? Well, of course, that's involving the Mexican deal that we just signed or got involved with. We have no idea what all the details are. It's a secret. But guess who knows all about it? Donald Trump. That's not how our system works here. There's supposed to be some transparency in these deals. The American people are supposed to know what's going on. This is our country. The president is not a dictator. He doesn't get to just open his jacket, take out a folded piece of paper, which is what he did today on the lawn at the White House, talking to the press, saying, I got a secret deal here. What's in it? It's a secret. We're not going to talk about it. But it's fantastic. It's great. Everything you ever wanted. We're just not going to talk about it. Is that how it works? How is this supposed to be a constitutional republic? How are you and I, as voters and citizens who are trying to be informed to make rational decisions to better this country through our elected officials, how are we supposed to know what's going on if the president is playing these games? This is what I'm talking about here. And I don't know who on the other side of the ledger is going to do any better, which is why I think that the president is going to win re-election, barring some sort of wild card. But nevertheless, this is what we're up against. This is America in the 21st century. The only reason we're still ahead is because it's so crazy everywhere else around the rest of the world. You cannot make this stuff up. So this is the state of us, June 11th, 2019, presidential jabs and secret deals. I can only imagine what type of secret deal we're going to have, if we have one, between the United States and China. And I can only imagine what type of jabs, left crosses, uppercuts we're going to see throughout the 2020 presidential campaign. But like I've always said and will continue to say throughout this journey, buckle up and get the popcorn ready. Thank you so much for joining me today, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure having you. As always, please like, share, subscribe, get the word out, and leave your comments. We do love hearing from you. This is the Capital News. I am Alex Karitis. Godspeed.